Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
Let me give you a big Labor Day surprise. Most people think if we all exercise the same and eat the same, we'd all look the same. And let me tell you why that's wrong. Your body is unique and your metabolism is unique. I'm Lacey Green and I'm a super trainer at Body. That's BODI.com. And you can't see me, but I don't look like your average personal trainer. I'm curvy and I'm proud of it. So I created a program for beginners only on the Body app to show people like us how to get incredible results and be our version of happy and healthy. This isn't just workout videos. It's people like you and me. It's community. It's incredible trainers. It's easy to follow nutrition and mindset experts to help you reduce stress and just feel better. And you can get started with my new program called For Beginners Only. Now, here's the big surprise. If you go to body.com right now, that's BODI.com, not only can you get everything Body has to offer at 50% off with an annual membership, you'll also get an additional 20% off, but only during Labor Day weekend. Let's do this together. Go to body.com. That's body with an I.com.
Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 335 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We have a wonderful guest joining us today to discuss recruiting from the unique perspective as an AAU coach, as well as the AAU coach of a Duke commit. But before we get into all that, Donald Wine here. I am the host for this episode. Sam Klein is unfortunately not able to be with us this week due to scheduling conflicts, but I do have Jason Evans here. So, Jason, hello to you.
Hey, Donald, and replacing Sam this week is someone who, you just teased it a little bit. Someone who definitely knows Duke basketball, Coach K, Duke recruiting, all of it. We're going to be very lucky to bring this guest to you folks.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's just get right into it. We are honored to be joined by a former Duke basketball and Duke soccer player. He has a national championship ring with the 2001 Duke Blue Devils. You can hear him extensively on Jason's miniseries about that team return to glory. He's also an AAU coach and happens to be the coach of recent Duke commit Kyle Filipowski. We have Andy Borman here. Andy, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure. Let's go.
Yeah, we are going to get started with recruiting and your time on the AAU circuit as a coach. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Jason to kick us off with that. So go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. So Andy, the first thing I think that Duke fans are most interested in is, of course, Kyle Filipowski, who was the first official recruit of the Jon Scheyer era. Let's start with this. Assess his game for me. You've been his coach on the AAU. By the way, how long have you been coach? How long have you known Kyle? How long have you coached him?
2 years. 2 years. So he came over right after his freshman season. And then the next year was COVID. So we didn't spend a lot of time playing against other teams, but we spent a lot of time in the gym together. Right. And then this past year was our first year on the court competing against, the best of the best.
And he competed quite well, as I understand it. Hey, take me through his game. You've probably seen more of him as a basketball player than just about anyone else out there. You spoke about all the practices and such. Give me the scouting report on Kyle Filipowski.
Yeah, think part Mike Dunleavy, part Kyle Singler, part Christian Leitner. And
dude, temper our expectations. Come on.
Yeah, no. And he's a kid and a young man that really embodies everything that Duke basketball is about, because he cares about winning first and foremost. And he's a true competitor. He's one of the guys that you love to have on your team. But if he was playing for another team, I don't think you'd like him very much, because he'll do anything to win. He's a great teammate, 6'11", can handle the ball, is really what I would call a playmaker, right? Because I don't know what exact position he really is, because he can handle, shoot, pass, score on the interior, rebound offensively and defensively. He's very, very much a modern basketball player.
Talk about, people see him, I think, as a stretch 4, stretch 5 kind of player because of that outside shot. Talk to me a little bit about, how good of an outside shooter is he? Is this a guy who's going to pull up and take threes off the dribble, or is it more like pick and pop kind of stuff?
No. He can do both. He can do both. That's why, everybody wants to put a number on him. Really, I played him, if we're going to use numbers, I played him at the 3, I played him at the 4, and I played him at the 5. But I don't like to use numbers with kids, because that's really not the game nowadays. The key with Kyle is that he's just a mismatch. So whatever the opposing coach did, we would just do the opposite, right? So if you want to go big, that's great. Now we're going to go small, and we're going to make your center guard Kyle, right? And if you're going to go small, now we're going to go big, and now we're going to make a smaller guy guard Kyle, because he is such an excellent passer. And so putting him in consistent mismatches was not just great for him, it was great for our entire team. And so he's really just a mismatch, and he's versatile, and he's a mismatch. And this is what I think is truly unique, is he's a mismatch on both sides of the ball, because not only can he play up and down the ladder offensively, but he can guard up and down the ladder. He can block shots, he can switch ball screens. He's just really, really team friendly, and he's really coach friendly.
Look, you're describing him as the second coming almost. There's got to be some weakness. What is it that you tell Kyle he needs to work on? What are the things you think that, might hold him back a little bit?
No, I think for him, it's just decision making, right? Because if you're going to, decision making isn't necessarily something that you can do in a skill workout. It just requires, experience and repetitions, and, obviously the best players in the world are the best decision makers, right? And that generally just takes a little bit of time. With Kyle, I wouldn't say that there's really a hole in his game. Like there's not this one thing where you say like, oh man, if he could do this. But I think he's really good at a lot of things. And I think the best thing about him is that he can get better at all of them, right? He has a body. He's going to get, when he gets with Coach Will in the weight room, he's going to get stronger, right? And when he gets with Nolan and Emil and Chris Carrawell and Coach Scheyer, like he's gonna get better across the board in every area. And I think that's the exciting part about him.
Look, obviously he has tremendous skills for a guy his size. Talk to me about his athleticism a little bit. I mean, how is he as a run jump kind of guy? How's his quickness?
Yeah, I mean, for his size, he's pretty darn athletic. Now, he's not Zion, right? And so, the thing with him, is a lot of it is going to be IQ, right? And it's going to be, learning how to, and he's good at this, right? But, once again, got to keep getting better. It's just learning that I'm going to shift the way I play depending on who I play against, right? There are some guys I can pressure. There are some guys that I need to force into drivers. Some guys I need to force into being jump shooters. And I think that that's who he is, as a defender, is just being able to force other players into, kind of settling for, their second or third option, but taking away their strength.
Let's talk about his recruitment a little bit. Were you the one? Because this is a guy who wasn't I mean, look, he was a highly regarded recruit, but he wasn't like, the kind of guy that Duke would automatically look at least in terms of his recruiting ranking prior to the past few months when he's, his performance on the court has really opened some eyes and he's shot up in the recruiting rankings. Were you the one? Did you tell Duke to come look at him, or did they find him on their own and then reach out to you? How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of applies to everyone, right? Like, especially everyone in the Northeast. COVID just put everything on a delay. It really did. During COVID, teams in Florida, teams in Georgia, teams in Texas, kind of those southern states, they were still playing. So you could see them and you could see them against others. Up here, in New York, we were not playing against others. So, with Kyle, and not just Kyle, like all of our guys, Denver Anglin, Chance Westry, Roddy Gale, Dominic Barlow. I mean, we Simeon Wilcher, we have some studs, Chisamok Para. So like, I knew how good they were, but we're in a gym with ourselves, so I'm right. Saying like, I know how good they are, but we're not playing against other teams in the area. So yes, I mean, I was talking to everyone, Duke included, but really everyone and saying like, hey, I think these guys are really good. And then this spring, and by the way, that was for an entire year. And then this spring, we didn't travel anywhere nationally, but what we did is we played regionally, right? And so we got a chance to play against team final with Jalen Duran and Derek Lively and Amani Bates. We got a chance to play against Albany City Rocks with JJ Starling. We got a chance to play against a bunch of kind of like the best guys from Virginia to New England. And then that's when it was like, ooh, wow, like I was right. Like this kid's really good. And everything we did, these coaches couldn't see it in person, but what they could is they could see it on a live stream or on a videotape or on Synergy. We actually did some really cool stuff with Synergy. And it was funny. I remember when Jon Scheyer called me and he was like, hey, like, we love him. And it was like John and I were joking about it. And it was more a matter of when, right? It wasn't necessarily like if Duke's going to recruit him. It's just when is Duke going to recruit him? Just because so many coaches love the eye test. And that's what we've all grown up with. We've all grown up with evaluating in person.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was kind of taken off the table. So that was kind of the progression. And then once those two guys, Coach Scheyer and Kyle, started talking to one another, I kind of took a step back, and it was just fun to watch their relationship progress. It was really cool.
I mean, how quickly did you know that Kyle was probably going to pick Duke?
I did. Honestly, I didn't. And I was in such a tough spot, being completely Duke blue. And the fact is I said it the first time, when I spoke to the Filipowskis, as a family, I said, if Duke recruits you, and I think they will, I can't promise you they will, but I think they will. And if they recruit you, I need you to understand that I'm going to be completely biased. And so, what at
least you're honest,
Yeah.
That is refreshing to hear. We appreciate that.
Yeah. But what I have to do is I also have to be completely transparent, because my experience with Duke was something that, couldn't have gone better, right? It was a 10 out of 10. But that was my experience. Right. And we're not looking for my experience. We're looking for your experience. And so, really, I took a step back, because at that point, when Kyle's recruitment got, to the point where he could really go anywhere he wanted to go, now it's about just what's best for Kyle. So a lot of my thoughts and feelings about the whole thing, I really kept to myself because I wanted, Kyle doesn't need to develop a relationship with the Duke staff through me. He needs to develop it on his own.
That's a great point. Yeah.
But it was incredible to watch them because I do remember after a conversation that Jon Scheyer and Kyle had, I do remember Jon calling me and saying like, "Hey, Andy, is this kid for real?" Like everything he's saying is like, it's almost too good to be true. And then I hang up with Jon and, Kyle calls me and, "Hey man, is this guy for real?" Because like everything he's saying is what I'm looking for, so
I love it.
At that point, it was just me saying to Jon, like, "Yes, Jon, this is who Kyle is. And yes, Kyle, this is who Coach Scheyer is." Like, there's no recruiting going on. You guys are showing your true selves. And that's when I started to believe this could happen, but it was not a sure thing. When Kyle told me he had made up his mind, I was, okay, where are we going? And when he told me Duke, I was not like, it wasn't some inside thing. Like it was, oh, wow. Okay. This is cool. How long do I have to keep this a secret? Cause I'm not good at keeping secrets, buddy.
How long was it? How soon after?
No, it was probably like the day before he called Jon. It was really soon, but I think, you'd have to ask Kyle how long he knew like where his heart was, but he told me the day before he told Jon. And I think he told Jon, the day before it was announced.
But,
yeah.
By the way, was Kyle cognizant? Did he really want to be the first recruit for Jon Scheyer? Or was that like not part of it?
I think that'd be a great question for Kyle.
Okay. Okay.
I think that would be a really good question for Kyle. I can tell you that that with him, with his recruitment, he was getting called by everyone all the time. And I think with him, it was kind of at a point where it's like I'm done with the recruitment process. I want to kind of move to the next step. I don't know, Kyle can tell you what his thought process was, but I do think part of it was, I want to get in early. I believe in this coach. He is right for me. And on top of that, I want to help build this class, right? I want to help build,
Ooh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Hey, Coach Scheyer, not only do I want to come to Duke, but I want to bring others too. Who we going to get and how can I help? And so I think that was part of it as well.
God, can you give me any more reasons not to love this kid? This is great stuff, Andy.
And that's why I say, like, I don't want to set, him up with some impossible standard because none of this is fabricated. It's really who he is, if you're going to judge him on made and missed shots, then okay, there may be days you're frustrated with him, but if you're going to judge him on winning and effort and, character and all the things that are truly, substance matters, then you'll never have a problem with him at any time.
Hey, let me ask you really quick. You talked a bit about the fact that you guys were stuck in the gym without having games for a year. How much was there a big improvement that you saw in the players? Was it better for them to only be practicing?
Yes and no. I mean, look, with us, we're a Nike EYBL program, so our team is made up of the best kids from around, right? And so, whether it's practice or competition, I think they go hand in hand. I don't think one can survive without the other. Did Kyle take a jump? Absolutely. so did his brother Matthew. I mean, like Matthew's jump the last 18 months has been, something I'm so damn proud of for him. All of our guys, Dominic Barlow, they all made jumps. And I don't think it's a matter of practice versus games. I think it's a matter of putting them in the gym with guys that are as good as them. And then that way, if you have an off day, you're going to get your butt kicked. And so what it does, is it requires you to bring it and to bring it at all times, and I think good players want to play with good players. And I think good players want to play against good players, and that's why I say I think it's a blend of both, but I think Kyle got better because Dominic Barlow pushed him. And I think, I think it goes round and round because this team I had this past year, I love them with my whole heart. We had an incredibly talented group that really loved getting after one another.
Hey, you mentioned Matt Filipowski just really quick. And we've mentioned him on this podcast before. He is Kyle's twin. He is also, right around 7 feet, but he's not considered as highly regarded a recruit. You told me you don't think that Duke is in the cards for Matt, right?
I mean, that's right. Like that's something that time will tell. I think the thing with Matthew, is that whereas Kyle's a little bit more of a versatile kind of like guard forward hybrid, Matthew is really more of a post player, but he's so modern in the fact that you don't bury him under the rim. And it took me, and I had the luxury, and I've said this to Matthew, I had the luxury of working with Matthew, for months before I really learned how to play him, because most of the big guys I coach, they're comfortable around the rim, but it takes them time to learn how to play away from the basket. Whereas Matthew's really good away from the basket and he's a phenomenal passer and he can shoot it. And, Kyle's on the bottom side of 7 feet. Matthew's above 7 feet. I think Matthew's probably 7'1". And I think with Matthew, I think he has a chance that, by the time he's a sophomore or junior in college, he could be the best out of the bunch. He's got a chance. Like he really has a unique skill set. And sometimes bigger guys just take a little longer to get to the finish line. But I think for him, his recruitment is going to be everything from Ivy League to mid-major. It's going to be huge. And for him, it's just going to be finding the right spot for him where he can be himself, because when Matthew is himself, that is an extremely impressive thing.
Hey, I got two other things I want to do with you really quick, and then I'm going to hand it over to Donald for some other stuff. But first thing is I want to ask you about what it was like playing at the Peach Jam. And your team had something pretty unfortunate happen. You had about a COVID come through the team. Talk to me about what Peach Jam was like and what it was like, as you guys, had to deal with the virus.
Yeah. I mean, it was exhausting. That's if you ask me to describe Peach Jam in one word, it was exhausting. We had players test positive, and then we had players come back. We had a false positive. It was kind of across the board. Wow. But the fact that this team, and it they really embodied the word team. The fact that they made it to the Final Four after going through that adversity was really incredible. And to make it to the Final Four without Kyle was really incredible. And to make it to the Final Four with, the fact that Chisholm Akpara spent an entire week isolated in a hotel room. Roddy Gale spent 2 days in a hotel room, and then we found out it was a false positive. So then he could come back. We're not a college team where, you can like practice 5 times before that, next game to get guys back in rhythm, they kind of test negative and you throw them on the court. So, the fact that we went through all that, and as we went through it, our team got stronger and tighter and closer together, I'm so darn proud of those kids. It's not even funny.
Hey, last thing from me, and I want to get back to Kyle again. One of the questions that we have to wonder about every single recruit that comes to Duke in this day and age is how long are they on campus? What's your assessment of how Kyle's game may translate to the NBA? And as a result of that question, do you think, look, there's some guys that we know are going to be one and done. Paolo Banchero is going to be one and done. Zion Williamson was clearly going to be one and done. We know this about some guys. There are other guys where we're not as sure. And, give me your assessment of Kyle Filipowski down the road. Do you think he's a multi-year college player, or is he someone who probably is going to move on to the NBA fairly quickly?
No, I think he's a multi-year player. And I think that, and I've said this to Kyle, and I've said it to his parents, and I've said it to Coach Scheyer and the whole staff, and I think we're all in agreement on it. I don't think anyone's going to be shocked one way or the other with whatever happens down the road with Kyle. I think the expectation going in is 4 years, and words like championships and leaving a legacy. That's why Kyle ultimately chose Duke, as his school. If it's sooner than 4 years, I think it will be one of those things where Kyle and his parents and John sit down together, kind of like my college roommate, Mike Dunleavy, where, sure, I would have loved for Mike to come back. Sure, everyone would have. I'm sure Mike would have, but he was the number 3 pick in the draft. He had to go. Yeah. And so I think with Kyle, let's not rush to judgment, graduate. And if you develop and a no-brainer opportunity presents itself beforehand, then let's address it then, but let's not rush the gun. Everybody's so in love with, predictions, and my thing is that's fun to talk about, but it's also, then all of a sudden, being a 4-year player at Duke, when has that ever been a bad thing? Exactly. You started saying a kid's a 2 and done, but then, he went back to Duke for an extra year. Since when is that a bad thing? Being a 4-year player is a great thing. And, and so my thing is let's set the expectation there and see what happens.
I love it. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Donald. He's got some other questions. Andy, this is great stuff.
Yeah, not a problem.
So, Andy, I want to shift gears to, I know Kyle is going to be coming into the 2022-23 Duke Blue Devils team, but we want to talk about this year's team. And obviously in this offseason, the big story has been the announcement that Coach K will be entering his final season as head coach. You, of course, are the nephew of Coach K. And so I just want to ask you, what did you think when you heard the news, and how did you hear about this news? Was it something that he told you, or was this something that you had to kind of hear through the grapevine like other players do? Because you're uniquely involved, being also family, but also a member of the Brotherhood.
No, man, I found out when it was on the Sports Center ticker. I didn't know. I didn't know beforehand. I actually had to make a couple phone calls to say, what the heck, man? But no, I found out that way. And I think, as anyone that knows me would say, I think my first reaction was extremely immature and selfish. And then I think as I got, a little more comfortable with the idea, then I slightly and slowly came around. But my first reaction was no, no, absolutely not. Coach is going to coach forever, right? You're not hanging it up. No way, man. And I think, as I, kind of slowly thought about it and then got a chance to talk to, some of my teammates and coach himself. I think the thing I would say is, coach always knows what's best, right? He always does. And we trust that in him. We always have. And, he deserves to do it his way. He deserves to be happy doing it his way. And so this is his way. And so I think, once again, like, my emotional reaction, probably immature and selfish, and then as I've kind of started to process it, going through my stages of grief, right? I'm finally on acceptance now.
I'm glad that you're just like every Duke fan out there. We're just kind of like, no, absolutely not. We're kind of like, okay, yeah, it makes sense that, coach, you're free to do what you want. You've earned that right, but no, like, But having said that, you talked a little bit about it with Jason just a minute ago, but your sense of Jon Scheyer, the coach, I know you've known him very well over the years. You've gotten to obviously have a lot of chats with him about Kyle, but just as a coach for Duke fans out there, what do you think about Jon Scheyer, the head coach? How does that sound to you? And what do you think we should expect from that?
I mean, it's a home run. It's a home run, really. He's clearly the right guy. He's ready, right now. The other thing too is, like, he's still a year away, right? So we get a whole year of, Coach K, the head coach, and we're still a year away from Jon Scheyer, the head coach. But he's the right guy. He's ready for it. I mean, he's going to die for his players, and they'll die for him, and that was the main thing, I think, with coach, is like honesty, integrity, and the fact that he was never going to ask you to do something that he wouldn't do himself, and honestly, probably a step further, like, hey, I'll do some stuff I'm not even going to ask you guys to do. Like, I'll jump on this grenade. I remember multiple times, where coach would walk in the locker room and say, hey, this is my fault. And I mean, coach didn't play in that game. How is it your fault? But he would step in front of the microphones and answer questions and take bullets for the guys on the team. And because of that, we would run through a brick wall for him. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's true. And John's the same way. And that's the culture that Coach K has built at Duke. And I think, John will carry it on. And I think guys like Kyle that are kind of like Duke throwbacks, right? They may play like modern players, but their beliefs and their core values are like Duke throwback core values, So I think it'll be new to see someone else standing up and calling timeouts, but I think it'll be the same in how hard we play and what we stand for.
You mentioned that just culture of Duke University and your time at Duke, we were on campus around the same time. You obviously are a national champion, and it's been highlighted by Jason Evans in his miniseries Return to Glory. Just take us back. I don't want to talk. I know you talk extensively about that year on that show, which everyone should listen to, but how did you enjoy kind of reliving that with Jason and also just with your teammates? How do you enjoy reliving that moment of winning that national title, which was now 20 years ago?
Oh man, I'd relive it every day if I could. I think people would eventually get sick of listening to me talk about it. It's one of the, top 5 things, and so it was great. And the best thing is not to do it by yourself. I got to do it with my teammates. It drew us back together. That's the, and I know I didn't play a lot at Duke, and nor should I have, but the thing I miss the most about Duke is being around my guys, and so getting a chance to do that is incredible. That's why, I just got back from K Academy, right? Coach K's fantasy camp. I mean, coaching at that camp is fun, but the whole reason I go back is to be around my guys, so I think that's the best part about the whole thing.
By the way, I should tell everyone listening, I know Return to Glory has been on hiatus for the summer, It's because our download numbers aren't as great in the summer as they are in the fall. So don't worry, Return to Glory will be coming back after Labor Day. We will be releasing the episodes where you guys win the Final Four and then win the national title. That's what's coming up. Big tease there.
Yeah, you ruined the ending.
Yeah.
Now they know.
I think they'll still listen. I'm just going to have a hunch there. But when it comes to your time on campus, not only were you a basketball player, you were on the national championship team, you also played soccer. And as people on the podcast know, I'm a huge soccer fan. So I want to talk about that for a second. You got to play under legendary coach John Rennie during your career. How was it like playing for not one, but two legendary coaches in their respective sports?
No, it was incredible. And also like two totally different experiences. We for soccer, when we played at Clemson, we took the bus. For basketball, when we played at Clemson, we took a charter. I remember we were number one in the country.
Wait. Andy, hold on. Did you guys fly to Clemson for basketball?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Really? It's not that far a drive, man.
Oh, I'll tell you, but hear me though. When I was on the soccer team, we took a bus to Clemson. It was not a far bus ride. I think it was probably 5 or 6 getting down there. We lost 1-0 or 2-1. It was a 1-goal game. And the bus ride back was the longest bus ride of my entire life because
I believe that
Coach Rennie put the game tape in the VCR and it was playing on the screen. And then when it ended, he rewound it and hit play again.
Oh my God.
And then when it ended, he rewound it and hit play again. So, look, we were all upset that we lost, but we had to watch it 3 more times on the ride home.
Wow.
That is some old school coaching right there. That's something that takes me back to high school.
Absolutely. Getting the chance to play with, guys like Ali Curtis and, Robbie Russell and Trevor Perea and, Donald McIntosh and, all those guys, who were supremely talented guys. And then turn around and step into practice with Jason Williams and Chris Duhon and Shane Battier. It was humbling on the soccer pitch and on the hardwood, but it was also incredible.
And the last question I have for you is kind of related to that. Playing basketball and playing soccer are two totally different disciplines, requires two totally different types of conditioning. How hard was it for you to do that and kind of shift gears, especially when that period when soccer ended and basketball began? How hard was it for you to catch up, or easy? How did you catch up to speed with your basketball conditioning while then at the end of the season, then having to revert back to soccer? How does that work as a 2-sport athlete?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the person. I'm sure it was pretty easy for Jay Heaps because he's just a freak athlete. It was a little harder for me. I think the other thing too is, I really had kind of 2 different roles. When I was on the soccer team, I was actually competing, for valuable playing time, right? Whereas when I was on the basketball team, I wasn't competing for valuable playing time. I was just there to make our team better in whatever way I could. The other thing with soccer, is I would start every year, from the beginning, right? Whereas with basketball, my first 3 years, I didn't join the team until well after their season had already started because we were in soccer season. I actually remember it was one of my great, I don't know how the hell I got away with it kind of stories, but we had lost in the NCAA tournament for soccer. I believe we had lost it at Brown in the Elite Eight, I believe. We flew back and landed. And as our bus pulled into Duke, they were loading up the basketball bus to go to Hawaii for the Maui Invitational.
Oh,
and I remember I remember saying, to, Coach Rennie and those guys, like, can I go? And they were like, yeah, we're good. We can do our like end of year meetings, down the road. And then I remember like hustling over, to Wojo and those guys and saying like, hey, can I come? Like, am I allowed to? And they were like, yeah, why not? Like, hop on. And so it was like, holy cow. All right. Like, I'm going to Hawaii. So it was like the transition wasn't always that seamless, but sometimes I got away with murder.
Well, that's you had some great stories. We're not even going to, bother with some of the other stuff because what you have is just incredible. And also just your insight on Kyle Filipowski and just from the perspective of being his AAU coach is very, very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Borman, again, a member of the 2001 national champion basketball team, also soccer team, and in Return to Glory, which will be back in September. So Andy Borman, thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to have you back on soon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We just want to thank Andy Borman for that incredible interview that he just gave just a few minutes ago on the DBR podcast. Jason, we have to talk about this because there's so many things that we have to unpack.
Such a great interview.
Such a great interview. Great questions. But first off, I just want to ask you about what your questions to him about Kyle Filipowski. To me, I feel like I'm ready to have him on campus right now. Are you?
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, look, let's be clear, because Andy is very close with Kyle, because he's his coach. He's gonna give you the rose-colored glasses version of Kyle Filipowski. That said, I mean, I don't know how you could not be excited about a guy who's a combination of Dunleavy, Leitner, and Singler. I mean, come on. It was really interesting insight. I learned some things about, I think Andy talking about the fact that Kyle's able to exploit mismatches both on the perimeter and on the inside. The fact that he's a really dynamic passer. These are the kind of things that I was hoping to get out of this from Andy that I think, have to, as a Duke fan, have to make you excited. And look, let's be honest. At the end, he said there's a possibility that this is not a guy who's looking to rush to the NBA. And that's also really exciting from the standpoint of Duke fans that, as great as guys can be as freshmen, and I think Kyle Filipowski will be really good at Duke as a freshman and be a starter on the Duke basketball team as a freshman. The notion that we might get 2, 3, maybe 4 years out of a guy this skilled, can we please make that happen?
I mean, look, he mentioned that he's very biased when it comes to Duke, and he has Duke colored glasses on. But I thought he gave a really raw answer when you asked about what he needs to improve on, and that he needs to improve his decision making and letting that. And honestly, that is a very important thing, because in college, as you know, Jason, the between high school and college, that level ratchets up, but decision making can make that gap really wide if you're not careful. And so being able to make sure that the game kind of slows down for him at a certain point, that's going to be something that will be nice to watch and see how he develops into that, because that's going to be a very important thing. Decision making is everything in college basketball. It can be the difference between you making the tournament and going all the way, or falling out in the first round. So those sort of things that may not be a very small thing, but at the same time, I think that it's going to be important to see how that develops over this next year and how he improves that, because when he walks into Duke, the decision-making is something that we talk about a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And look, I'm sure that most folks came for the recruiting info. They came for the info about Kyle Filipowski, but Donald, your conversation with him about his time at Duke, his relationship with his uncle, Coach K, I have to tell you, my face hurts, because I've been smiling and laughing so much during that interview that my cheeks actually hurt. And that story, I'm sorry, but that story about the trip on the soccer, Coach Rennie, and the trip home from the 6-hour trip home from Clemson. That's one of the best stories. I am still dying in laughter from that story. That's just great stuff from Andy.
Look, I told you that takes me back to my high school days when, my high school basketball coach, we would travel to a lot of away games in Ohio or West Virginia or something like that, where it was a 3 or 4 hour trip. And if we lost those games, that tape was on our bus. And like he said, VHS tape. We had to rewind. When he starts to rewind, he's serious about it. So that was a very, very funny story, but also one that took me back to those days where coaches would be so mad that they would just do nothing but show you how bad you lost or what you did wrong for an entire bus ride back.
It's fun stuff. It's really great.
Before we wrap up, Jason, I know that you have some updates on other recruits that are coming down the pike, including a couple of recruits that are going to be coming to Duke for official visits this fall. Let's talk about those two guys.
Yeah. And by the way, we spent so much time talking about Kyle Filipowski. Part of what I'm going to tell you folks is the role that Kyle Filipowski is playing in the recruitment of some of these players. The first one is Jaden Schutt. We've talked about him a little bit on this podcast. This is the kid who is an absolute lights out shooter, widely considered the single best shooter in the entire recruiting class. He is very interested in Duke. A lot of people have made comparisons between his game and Jon Scheyer's game. So, obviously that would seem to be a really nice fit. Jaden Schutt has scheduled his official visit to Duke for the weekend of August 27th, about a week from now. It'll be his first time on campus at Duke. He also has scheduled an official visit to the University of Florida on September 18th, which is when Florida is playing Alabama in football. So that could be, I'm sure that'll be a very exciting time at Florida for Jaden Schutt. But Kyle Filipowski says he has said that he has been talking to Jaden Schutt about joining Dariq Whitehead, joining, hopefully some other guys, and helping to make Jon Scheyer's first class, really, really impressive. So folks, if you're around Duke, be on the lookout that weekend of the 27th, 28th, 29th, Jaden Schutt will be visiting Duke. And then the other guy, super highly regarded player, Mark Mitchell, one of a 5-star recruit, one of the probably top 10 players in the class for sure, has said that he is officially going to be visiting Duke on October 15th for Countdown to Craziness. So crazies, when you're out there cheering on the team for Countdown to Craziness, make sure you cheer for Mark Mitchell. It's interesting to note, Mark Mitchell's visited Duke before. He took an official visit about a month ago, back in June, I think it was, but that was during his junior year. Technically, this is now his senior year. So he's allowed to have another official visit. The experts out there think Mark Mitchell is going to be a kid who's going to end up committing to Duke. And one of the reasons is the kid's taking a second visit. I mean, that has to be a good sign that you're not taking one, but you're taking 2 official visits. That said, it is worth noting that Mark Mitchell also has official visits scheduled for Kansas and UCLA. And the word is that Mitchell's probably going to decide, try and make his decision sometime in November or December. And then the last thing I wanted to mention very quickly, just a couple days ago, Kyle Filipowski and Dariq Whitehead, the 2 kids who've already committed to Duke, were on a Instagram chat that they were doing with some Duke students, I believe it is, and the 2 of them were asked, "Hey, are you guys doing any recruiting for Duke? Are you guys reaching out to anyone?" And at the same time, they both said, "Yes, we're talking to Derek Lively." Derek Lively is probably the number 1 recruit in the class. Now that Imani Bates and Jalen Duran have moved from the class of 22 to the class of 21, Derek Lively is pretty widely considered the number 1 recruit in the class. He's 7'1". He's a pogo stick who grabs every rebound and blocks every shot. But he has got a developing offensive game as well. Folks are really, really high on this kid. And Filipowski and Whitehead say they are working the hardest to land him for Duke. That would be a truly amazing thing. A lot of folks think he's probably leaning toward Kentucky. There's also some talk that Memphis is getting very involved with him. But it'd be very exciting if these players and Jon Scheyer are able to convince the number 1 kid in the class to come join the Blue Devils.
So back to Mark Mitchell. I have no scientific or analytical data to back this up, but I feel like guys who take their official visit during Countdown to Craziness usually end up committing to Duke.
That's a great point.
Obviously a high energy night, but especially this year, where there was no kids in Cameron last year. We haven't had a Countdown to Craziness in 2 years. The energy in that building on that night is going to be a level that very few people that are not Duke fans will be able to properly understand. And I feel like that is a perfect opportunity to bring in everybody. I don't care what sport they are. If you're a recruit coming to Duke University, I feel like Suge Knight right now, come to Countdown to Craziness, because after that night, you will commit to Duke University because that energy level is just going to be unparalleled. Yeah,
Donald, Countdown to Craziness is one of those occasions where you say, this one goes to 11.
Yes, 1100. So it's just amazing. So we're looking forward to those. Jaden Schutt, as you mentioned, Jason will come next week. Mark Mitchell will come in for Countdown to Craziness for their official visits. We will look forward to seeing what happens there, and hopefully we just lock the doors when Jaden Schutt gets there next week, and oh yeah, he leave, but are you gonna come back? But that would be great. But that will do it for this episode 335 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We will be back sometime in the future. I know we have some things coming up. Football is coming up, so we may do a preview of that very, very soon. But until then, for Jason Evans and for Sam Klein, who is not here, but we wish he was here to take in this great interview that was Andy Borman, I am Donald Wine. Again, thank you, Andy, for joining us on this here podcast. And now it is time for the Duke Band to take us home.
Let me give you a big Labor Day surprise. Most people think if we all exercise the same and eat the same, we'd all look the same. And let me tell you why that's wrong. Your body is unique and your metabolism is unique. I'm Lacey Green and I'm a super trainer at Body. That's BODI.com. And you can't see me, but I don't look like your average personal trainer. I'm curvy and I'm proud of it. So I created a program for beginners only on the Body app to show people like us how to get incredible results and be our version of happy and healthy. This isn't just workout videos. It's people like you and me. It's community. It's incredible trainers. It's easy to follow nutrition and mindset experts to help you reduce stress and just feel better. And you can get started with my new program called For Beginners Only. Now, here's the big surprise. If you go to body.com right now, that's BODI.com, not only can you get everything Body has to offer at 50% off with an annual membership, you'll also get an additional 20% off, but only during Labor Day weekend. Let's do this together. Go to body.com. That's body with an I.com.
The golden age of travel is back in the Palm Beaches. Relax on sun-kissed beaches with cleaner sands and fewer crowds. Experience the original, the one, the only, the Palm Beaches. Plan your trip at thepalmbeaches.com.